And before I get into the main story, this is just life, guys. If you show weakness, people will take advantage of it. So before we even get into Libya and Syria, if you live in a not so great part of the city and your building is weak, your security doesn't work, you don't have a security guard, it's easy to hop the fence, people will take advantage of it. That's how life works. So if you have security, you make it harder. It's the same thing with politicians. If you're weak, people take advantage of it. So when people watch on TV that police cars are burning and the cops can't do anything, you're sending a message to all of America, everybody, every degenerate from every race, religion, and gender, every person who just wants to take advantage of a situation, who says, you know what, maybe they're desperate, maybe they don't have a lot of money, maybe they're angry from the shutdown and don't really have a lot of loyalty to companies and such. Whatever the case may be, this is why you can't be weak. You could be kind, but kindness is not weakness. You know, compassion is not foolishness. And this is where people get mixed up. They think weakness is kindness. It's not true. And they think foolishness is compassion. It's not true. I'm kind, I'm compassionate, but I'm not weak and I'm not a fool. So that goes with a country too, not just a state. That's why it's important for everybody to protect themselves, but also on a country scale. And I'm going to get into that with Syria. The border conversation was never really about Hispanic or racism. That's what they make everything out to be so they could close the conversation. At a certain point, it's simple common sense. Whether you're America, whether you're Mexico, whether you're Syria, or whether you're Libya, border security is important so infiltration groups don't come in. And it's not racist to think that they're coming from Mexico. To be honest, if you want to be real, if they do come from Mexico, or if they did, I guarantee you it was not the Mexican government who sent them. You get what I'm saying? So it's not just blaming Mexico. That just happens to be where our border is. It's the same thing with our western border. You know, God bless Asia. However, we have Navy there, you know, or whatever they're called. I'm sorry, not the Navy. What are the, somebody will correct me, but the water division of our military. I'm blanking. So in Syria, we'll start with Syria. I have a buddy from Syria, and this has been one of my main causes for 4 or 5 years. I don't know why. I just kind of studied it a lot. So in general, I looked at Syria, and I saw everything that happened. I talked to people there. I tried to figure it out, and I'm like, how did Syria get infiltrated by Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, the United States government's in, Russia's in, Iran's in? The whole country just became a war zone for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years during the Syrian war. And I had a conversation with my buddy. I said, how did that start? Because I kind of know what happened afterwards. And he said, how it started was, first of all, there were protests. This is why I predicted this 2 years ago, because I saw it coming. There were protests. And it was just casual protests. You know, it happens in most free democratic countries. Some people are ticked off at the leadership. They had protests, and then they got infiltrated, and they turned them into riots. So what happened was Syria's borders were open, and they didn't close them. And Syria isn't surrounded by water. It's right in the middle. It's landlocked. So when you don't close your borders, you can have Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, U.S. military. Anybody could really get in if you don't have strong security. It's the same logic with like an apartment complex in a bad neighborhood. It's so simple. It's so common sense. That's why the news has to bring race and do all this stuff to just confuse you. So that happened. And as the protests turned into riots, outside forces started coming in the country, made it worse, 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 worse. And then the United States picked a little instance, either made it up or had a real thing and flipped it, and then gave themselves justification to enter the country. And now you have war-torn Syria, guys. You had Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, ISIS, these really bad, groups taking over entire cities. Sound familiar? Your city being taken over, your city turning into a war zone. Guys, this is how they do it every single time. I've watched it happen in Africa. I've watched it happen in the Middle East. So excuse me that I don't think I'm Martin Luther King Jr. for posting a black square once every 10 years. Like the people that have nerve to get on my case, like people I haven't even talked to in 10 years. You haven't posted a thing in 10 years, bro. I've been studying this for 5 years. Losers. Anyway, so open borders, protests turn into riot, infiltration groups come in, and the next thing you know, you're overwhelmed. How did the Syrian government get overwhelmed? Too much, weaponry to the terrorist groups. And if you study them, The weaponry in many cases are coming from us or our allies, Israel, America, Saudi Arabia. And then Russia came in to help Syria, and it turned into a proxy war. America, Israel, Saudi Arabia, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, al-Nusra, Russia, Iran, Syrian government. And then you had people fighting each other. You see videos of looters killing each other. It just turns into what we call destabilization. You're destabilizing a country. It's exactly what they did in Syria. It took President Trump and Russia, just to be honest, not working together. However, Russia helped Syria. Trump kind of backed off when it comes to the regime change. I don't think he wanted to overthrow the leader of Syria because it never ends well. Speaking of never ending well, let's move over to Libya. What happened in Libya? Gaddafi, obviously controversial guy, but you listen to him, was not playing with the world elites, was not playing with the central banks, was not afraid to sit in front of NATO or whoever these groups were. I don't know if it was NATO, but these world groups. Listen to some of his speeches, guys. I mean, he was pretty outspoken. He was like, listen, guys, you might come for me soon, but they're going to come for all of you. He had that type of mentality. He's like, you guys can all be silent, think they're your friends. They're coming for you too. He was progressive in the sense of what progressives think that they're doing. He actually did in Libya. Housing, schooling, their economy started boosting. Libya was looking pretty dang good. And overall, even if they had some social problems in Libya, it's not America's responsibility to invade Libya. You get what I'm saying? It's not our responsibility to invade Syria. It's not our responsibility to talk trash to Iran. Why does America do that? That's one of our problems, and it goes to both wings, whether it's George Bush, Trump, Obama, Hillary, they all seem to do it. Venezuela, guys, we have a crisis in our own country, socially, economically, a lot of stuff. There's no reason for the past 10 years we should have been funding trillions of dollars overseas in Afghanistan and these countries. Doing what, guys? We're not even making progress there, and we're just making people hate us more. But anyway, in Libya, similar thing happened. So Gaddafi was not playing suit with the world leaders. He was not the puppet that they chose to be there. And there was a civil war. I wasn't in Libya. I can't tell you that much about it, but how bad was it? How did it start? I don't know, but if you study Africa in certain parts, it gets a little weird, just like it does in America. We have the Women's March. Imagine if they framed the Women's March and said, oh my God, there's 1 million people in the streets. This is civil war. They could do the same thing here, guys. We have even bigger protests in Africa when it comes to opposition protests. So there was, some conflict. And in certain cases of Africa, I don't know about Libya, but they have militant groups. They have like rebel groups. It gets a little crazy in certain areas. But Libya overall was pretty decent. And, the United States used the Civil War as an excuse to fund rebel groups or fund outside groups to invade Libya. And what did the United States government do under Barack Obama, the half black, half white? It's interesting. He's black. Yeah, he's half black. He's half white as well. But anyway, he, with the help of Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State and that whole regime, funded groups to go into Libya, killed Muammar Gaddafi, killed an African leader who was probably the Trump of Africa at the time. I'm not saying he was exactly like Trump, but he was the guy who didn't care, didn't say what was politically correct, was just speaking his mind, trying to help his own people, killed him, and then left a power vacuum in Libya. What resulted from that power vacuum? And this is why it really ticks me off when people get on my case. I don't care if you're out protesting. I don't care if you're posting black squares. But at bare minimum, don't have the nerve to come to my page and try to talk crap to me when you just figured out yesterday something was wrong. They killed the leader of Libya in Africa and then left a power vacuum where slave trade and organ harvesting took place. So these people want to talk about slavery. Slavery exists in the modern world in multiple situations, but one of the main crises of the modern era was the Libyan power vacuum left because Obama, Hillary Clinton, and those people, probably the George Bushes, the McCains, the Mitt Romneys, the two-party system, invaded Libya, and they made it much, much worse. They did not make it better at all, and they almost never do. That's why that's why I actually liked Trump at the beginning. I didn't even vote for Trump, to be honest. But when he first won, as he's getting into office, I'm like, I saw what he said about Syria, and I saw what he said about Libya, and I was like, Trump is not another puppet, or at least he's pretending not to be. He doesn't agree with regime change war. No one talked about it because nobody thinks for themselves. They say whatever Nike, Visa, MasterCard, LeBron James, Colin Kaepernick, MSNBC, and CNN say. So it's like, I'm sorry, I just don't follow the herd. That was the main thing I liked about him from the jump, was the anti-regime change policy, because I knew it led to slavery and refugees. And if you want to understand the refugee problem that really screwed up Europe and America and Canada a little bit, it was caused by the United States of America, probably Israel and Saudi Arabia, whoever else was involved, for infiltrating Syria, causing destabilization, and then you have millions of people who don't know where to go. And when you have millions of people who don't know where to go, they want to go somewhere. And when you have millions of people who don't know where to go, thousands upon tens of thousands upon hundreds of thousands of people from other countries, other African countries, other organizations that have nothing to do with Syria, they start blending into the crowd and saying, oh, I'm Syrian, take me into Germany. I'm Syrian, take me into UK. And a big portion, whether it's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% of these Syrian refugees that, you know, Europe took and Canada took and America took, a lot of them were not even from Syria. They could have been from horrible groups or bad people. Some of them were serious people in need. But that's what I say when I say kindness is not weakness. When you're weak, you will be taken advantage of. So the Syrian refugee crisis that screwed up a lot of Western civilization was caused by Western civilization. That's where the progressives are right. If you don't invade and destroy, there are no refugees. People can handle themselves. If they have a civil war, let them do their civil war. If they have a problem, let them. We don't get to determine what everybody else does. You know, when we have homeless people in the streets, it's not our responsibility. We have enough people suffering here. We don't need to invade. So that's what happened in Libya. And the same thing with Ukraine. If you look at pictures, there were neo-Nazis in Ukraine, or there was some sort of like neo-Nazi sort of thing. You look at the pictures, I could probably find it and show you. They look exactly like Charlottesville. It's pretty insane. Isn't that interesting? Here, I'll look it up. Ukraine, neo-Nazi, Charlottesville. Let me see. I'm going to find a side-by-side picture. Julian Assange actually tweeted it. I can't find it. Julian Assange tweeted it before they deleted his Twitter account and he got arrested. But he was trying to show you the, organic protest in Ukraine looked exactly like the organic Charlottesville protest in America. And the leader of the Charlottesville Unite the Right guy was an old Democratic person, guys. He was a Hillary, and his Twitter was filled with Democrat stuff. So you're telling me somebody in 3 years flipped from a massive Hillary supporter to a neo-Nazi, arranged a rally that looks exactly like the one in Ukraine that led to the regime change in Ukraine? Guys, the people who run this planet are not stupid. They're not thinking, let me rob Nike for $10 because I'm mad at Trump or white people or conservatives. They don't operate like that. So you could think that this is just something small, based off George Floyd's death. Obviously, it's disgusting what happened to him. But the picture is much, much bigger. They've done regime change in Libya and Syria and Ukraine, and it always happens the same way. Protests turn into riots, infiltrate with outside groups or inside groups, depending how you do it, exploit open borders, exploit weakness, cause a chaotic crisis, destabilize the country, and most of the time they just screw the country up. They don't even really achieve anything. I don't know what they're doing, but they're sick people. So here, you saw the exact same thing happen here. And who's supporting these protests? George Bush, Obama, who created the destabilization in Libya. He said it was his worst mistake. He knows it was messed up. All these people, all these corporations, all the celebrities, the same celebrities that told you to stay inside for 3 months. Guys, if you don't realize the COVID-19 situation now was a little bit of a sneak attack, look at what they're doing. The same nurses that told you that you going to job or going to the gym or going to the beach or going to see your family was like a devastating, dangerous thing, they're out applauding the protesters, guys. They're saying, good job for being in tens of thousands of people, in small spaces. These same nurses are out there applauding, guys. They never cared. This is the mind, unfortunately. Not every protester is a bad person. Not every protester is a rioter. Not every liberal is a horrible person. I'm not trying to say that. However, this is the mindset of the liberal progressive hive mind. Guys, if you disagree, it's a witch hunt. You know how many people messaged me yesterday? Guys, I'm going to lose my job if I don't post a black square. They're going to think I'm racist. I can't work at this company unless I agree. They're forcing me to agree. They're the most intolerant people on the planet. If you're conservative, I've called out Trump 1,000 times. I don't like what he does. I don't like what the Republican Party does. I think the Republican Party is mostly sneaky and dishonest. No one bothers me, guys. I mean, a few Trump supporters get ticked off, but for the most part, the left wing is so intolerant to outside opinions. It's absolutely insane. And this strategy of what they're doing is not random. When President Trump got elected, they were upset from the very get-go. From day one, they had a plan with a totally fake narrative covered with the water by all the celebrities and all the corporate media. Guys, they colluded with a foreign spy or an ex-spy from Great Britain, like Christopher Steele, to create a dossier that they made themselves with a foreign agent, a British ex-spy, crafted it, gave it to the FISA courts, didn't tell them that they themselves funded it and created it, because then it wouldn't have worked. So funded and created something with a foreign agent, gave it to a FISA court, used it as justification to start spying on the Trump administration to try to find ties to a foreign country. For 2 years, they didn't find it. They accused him of doing what they did. They said he worked with Russian. We're working with Russia, and these people, they're working with everybody to try to find dirt on him. Guys, it was always they don't want him there. There's two options. Either Trump is a good guy, and they don't want him there, or he's just a scapegoat. He's, part of the plan. It's like WWE, and he's the guy to pretend like he's the good guy for them to take down and screw everyone over. I hope he's the actual good guy, but I'm just saying the options are pretty obvious at this point. There is no he's big bad man and these, Joe Biden's going to save the world and corporate America. I mean, CNN really has our best interest. That's not really happening. So, you could pick one or the other. Someone said Fox didn't like Trump at first. Fox News is not. They're corporate too. They've always been corporate neocon. Until, I'm not trying to be mean, but until Trump won, most of these people had no spine. They said nothing honest. They were doing the same thing that John McCain and Mitt Romney were doing, Geraldo Rivera, pretending to be conservative and then starting a war in Syria, pretending to be conservative, telling you that they're fighting jihadist terrorists, but actually funding them. So it's natural. Most of these people hated Trump at the beginning because Trump is not one of them. Trump is not the chosen puppet. That's most likely the option. So overall, people really have to think about this stuff because I've seen them do this, and now that it's happening here, it's easier for them to destabilize because they're part of this country. When you want to destabilize Syria, protests turn to riots, open borders, infiltrate, destroyed. Here, you don't even have to do all that stuff because these people live here. So if they owned and controlled the Syrian government, they could have other ways to destroy it and destabilize it. But the only way they could destabilize Syria was paying Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, ISIS, or themselves sending people in to try to destabilize because they don't have property there. They're not, unless they have spies or something. And it's the same thing with Libya. They didn't control Libya, and they hated that, so they had to figure out a justification to go in and destroy it. With America, they don't even have to destroy it with infiltration. I think they tried. With the caravan situation, listen, I know people who are legal. I don't judge people based on their legal status. To me, it's all love. But also, I'm not the president, a law enforcement agent, and such. It's not my job. If it was my job, that's one thing. It's not. However, you got to understand, no matter how much you love Hispanics and Mexicans and South Americans, and no matter how much the plight is there, being weak as a country is not a good idea. So this caravan, it's not even just about Latinos and Latinas. It's like, who are these people? Any foreign country, any bad person can just fund thousands of people and let them into your country. Guys, if you don't know who they are, it's a horrible idea. It is an invasion. Remember when that was happening? That's when I started talking about this. I was like, guys, I've seen this story happen in Libya and Syria. It's nuts. But they don't even have to do that because they own most of the corporations in this country. They control half the political or 75% of the political spectrum, if not more. They control most of celebrities. They control a lot of businesses. They have people like Fauci and the CDC and the World Health Organization that could step in and tell everybody to shut down for a few months. So in order to destabilize America, they don't even have to fund outside groups to invade like Syria and Libya. They own so much stake here, which makes it such a trickier situation, which is why you're seeing turmoil, guys. It's not just, people are really ticked off and, we need change. It's the world elites, to many extent, controlling activism and controlling black activism. It's all liberal owned and controlled to achieve an agenda that they have to do. And they do that in the Middle East as well. They don't fight most of their own wars. You think the bankers are going to fight? You think that, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and Trump are going to be out on the front lines fighting in Syria? No, and they don't even, most of the time, obviously there are U.S. military, but they fund groups to do their dirty work for them. Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, you could Google reports, they're driving U.S. cars, shooting U.S. weapons. At a certain point, there's video footage of them. It might sound crazy what I'm saying, and you're like, no way, America would never do that. Guys, Hillary Clinton's on record, one of the most honest speeches she's ever done. She's on record saying we funded Wahhabist terrorists in the Middle East to do our dirty work against Russia. They brought them in from Saudi. They brought them in from other Muslim countries, the extreme ones, got them to fight their wars, and then they had a problem on their hands, guys. At a certain point, their people turned against them, because when you fund and weaponize terrorist organizations, they're not always going to be your friends. So it's on record. U.S. did this from Nixon, Reagan, to now. It's been our strategy in the Middle East. It's just real. And same with here. These Democrat politicians, they think that because they have voters, they're on our side. No, don't destroy Seattle. This is a progressive state. Guys, there's a New York Times article that says Minneapolis, it's not Republican. It's one of the most liberal cities in the U.S., guys, and they're still calling each other racist. They're never going to win. You got to just leave them alone. They're going to tear each other down. They post a black square, and then Demi Lovato complains that posting black squares actually silences black voices, or now there's so many black squares we can't find out the information where to go. They're never going to be satisfied. They're never going to be happy. It's a downward spiraling situation. So the silver lining of this, and I don't justify anything, burning, looting, it's all not good. However, it's all happening in Democrat-run areas. It's all happening in liberal cities and liberal, strongholds. They can't control their own people. They funded and brainwashed and manipulated a bunch of people to do their dirty work, and they don't even know how to stop it. And that's what happens every time. If you look at Libya, it's not better now than before they destabilized it. It never is. Syria, it wasn't good when it was destabilized. It's good now that they got the terrorist organizations out of there and locked down. So you get what I'm saying? This type of stuff happens all the time. I want to play this clip real quick of this, what I call her African queen. I mean, she's just really upset. And you notice this with a lot of African moms. She's got that Karen African mom vibe where it's like, go clean your room, shut up, Like you get mad at your parents sometimes and you're like, hey, for the summer, I just want to hang out with my friends. And your mom says, no, you're not hanging out with your friends. You got to get a job. You hate it, but then when you grow up, you look back and you realize you're like, oh, I'm glad my parents actually didn't let me be lazy and stuff. But she goes off on these protesters, guys. Pretty crazy stuff, and then we're going to talk about it. I know everybody might not agree with it, but this lady is going nuts. Low-key, I'm like, get her a position in the White House. I would love to see her just spaz out.
My point was that black kids in Chicago get killed every single day. Where is the Black Lives Matter in Chicago? Where are they? When black people kill black people, they don't come out and do this crap. The only time they do this crap is when a white person touches them. They're the racists. They are the racists. Because white cops, it's wrong for a white cop to kill a black person, that's for sure. But if it matters, it should matter at all times.
So what are you fighting for? What are you fighting for? You are not here to fight injustice. You're here to cause drama.
Message will be stop violence. It's not about blacks.
In a unicorn world. That's not a unicorn world.
Period.
Okay, since you're so...
You guys explain blacks are oppressed. I am black. I'm not oppressed. I am free.
That's good for you. That's an individual person. What about a systemic issue?
Where? I am black. I've always wanted to be. I have a... I do what I want. You have the skills. This is a country where you have the skills. You want to do what you want. You do it. Stop forcing on people to accept that they're oppressed. They are not. I am not oppressed. I am black. Stop making people accept that they're oppressed. You're forcing a rhetoric into your minds, which is not true. That's my point. Okay. Violence is wrong, period. It's not about blacks. You agree that whites kill whites too, right? Have you seen any white person coming out and saying white life matter or white thing? No, violence is wrong.
They literally do all the time. Every time there's a Black Lives Matter protest, a white person...
It's not a black problem. It's a violence problem. The blacks kill blacks in black neighborhoods every single day. I have never seen a Black Lives Matter in those neighborhoods. Never. Never. You know what they said? When the black person kill a black in a black neighborhood, they come out and they say, when the police comes, you know what they tell the police? Snitches get stitches. I know that.
Yo, this lady's
snitches
wild.
get stitches. But if a white person kill a black person, Black Lives Matter. Stop the hypocrisy. Nobody takes this seriously. Nobody. If it matters, it should matter in black neighborhoods. You start cleaning at home.
So why don't you go?
You
Why don't
start
you
your
start?
kids at home.
Why don't you start?
I'm not carrying anything saying Black Lives Matter. I know I matter.
Why don't you start?
You guys are wasting everybody's time. Okay?
Since you're so
Black
excited
feels
about this,
black more than any race. Where's the Black Lives Matter?
people kill in their community.
Where's the Black Lives Matter?
Yo, that lady's got some strong African Karen energy. You gotta love it. But in general, I understand everybody's upset, and I understand why. The world is crazy. I understand the passion. I understand the love for our black brothers and sisters. But people come out once every 3 years and post an Instagram thing, which is fine, or go in the streets. But like people say, they don't even understand the situation. If your goal, I know people don't want to hear from me or her, but if your goal is truly Black Lives Matter, save Black lives, you have to look at the cause of what's killing black people. One of the main things that's killing black Americans and white Americans, to be honest, is diet lifestyle. We have unhealthy lifestyles, unhealthy food, unhealthy neighborhoods in this country, and it's killing hundreds of thousands of people a year, guys. Hundreds of thousands, not 10, not 1, not 20, hundreds of thousands. Nobody cares about it because it's not about Black Lives Matter. They should rename the group to when a white cop kills a black guy, we're going to get pissed off every couple years, because that's all it is. Just to be honest, I care about every life, so let's talk about millions of people dying when they don't have to die. And when it comes to crime, like she said, it's just honest, like 90% of it is black on black crime. The amount of police, more people will kill each other in 3 days than police will kill all year. It doesn't justify what police are doing. I'm not making excuses for the guy, but change your name from Black Lives Matter to we only care about racial or police crime. And then I'll respect you. And then I'll be like, you know what, that's a good issue. I agree with you. It's messed up. Let's focus on it. But if you're saying this is my title, but I don't actually care about it, they're all hypocrites. And when you get to the core of who they are, not the people in the streets, but who the people are controlling it, it's all politically controlled. What is Obama telling you to do? He's telling you to vote. Who's he telling you to vote for? He's telling you to vote for Democrats. Where did the situation happen? In a Democratic area. Why was that police officer still there? He's protected by police unions. Who supports unions more than anybody? It's Democrats. It's hard to fire somebody with all that sort of stuff, whether it be affirmative action or unions, whether it's a teacher or police. And I'm not anti-union. I'm just saying, where's all the stuff going on? All in Democrat cities. And then they tell you, they funnel you in the streets, scream Black Lives Matter 3 times a year, ignore 99.9% of black lives, and then tell you to go vote for the Democratic Party. If you don't realize that it's a PSYOP at this point, I don't know what to tell you. And I've watched them destabilize Syria. I've watched them destabilize Libya. I've watched them destabilize Ukraine. I've watched them kill an African leader in Libya, Muammar Gaddafi, who was saying some real stuff, kill him, and then slavery enabled because they had terrorist organizations and rebels, and it became a war zone. I saw him do it in Syria, and I see him doing it here now. And I refuse to just sit here and be another lemming or a sheep, because I know much better to just post 2 times a year, pat myself on the back, and then get real testy with other people, because now everyone's doing it. I feel strong because I'm in a group. I feel strong when I'm by myself. You know what I'm saying? It's not ideal, but it's like, there's no respect for somebody that gets in a group of 10 people and then they start talking trash to somebody else because they're around a lot of people. That's called weakness, just shielding themselves behind their friends and stuff. It's crazy how people are acting, and it's corporations, and it's not going to stop, guys. The riots might stop, the protests might stop, all this stuff might stop, but you have to understand, in this country, we'll see what happens with what Trump does and who he really is. We'll find out eventually, but this is a thing that's going to have to be pushed back against. The silent majority, the people who say enough is enough. I mean, it's so nuts now. Somebody from Law and Order or one of those television shows, he basically just said, if somebody robs my house or somebody loots my store, I'm going to shoot them. And he got fired from his job. You have Michelle Malkin getting banned from Twitter for saying that violent looters deserve to be shot. I don't justify violence, but guys, I think that's just basic common sense. If somebody breaks into your house or threatens you, what else are you really supposed to do? You supposed to just let them rob you? This is, unfortunately, I'm not trying to make it political, but this is progressive America, guys. If an intruder, regardless of their race or ethnicity, if they break into your house, this happened in Canada. They broke into this guy's house, stabbed him in the head with a knife, and he killed the person, and they said he excessively killed him and put the guy in jail. You can't even defend yourself if somebody breaks into your house and stabs you with a knife. Is this the country you want to live in? Why? Because a bunch of brainwashed people just march in the streets 2 times a year and act like they have the moral high ground when they know nothing about black lives, when they know nothing about black America, when they know nothing about the black community. And I'm not talking about the pain, and suffering, the injustice, and the real history that we do need to have a conversation about. We do need to talk about our history. We do need to talk about our present, and we do need to talk about our future. I'm down to talk about all of it, but if you notice, the powers that be are on the side of the Black Lives Matter protesters, which is fine. But if you write a history book, if you're black and you write a history book that they don't want you to write, like Louis Farrakhan, you get banned off of Amazon. Louis Farrakhan talked about the slave trade. He just didn't talk about the race they wanted to. Look it up. And they banned his book on Amazon. Louis Farrakhan doesn't buy into the Don Lemon style black activism. No offense, but you could not like Farrakhan. He's different. They banned him on Facebook. So, Candace Owens doesn't agree. This lady doesn't agree. They freak out at her. That's how they don't actually care about black people. They care about liberal activism and voting for their politicians, whether it be George Bush, Mitt Romney, or, an Obama or a Biden. The hypocrisy just never ends. It's like it gets draining even talking about it. It sounds stereotypical, but Biden passed a crime bill. If you're so worried about injustices in the jail community, which I've been for 15 years, Biden passed one of the most controversial crime bills in the community. And Trump passed the First Step Act to let thousands of nonviolent drug offenders out of jails. So it's like people don't care about this stuff. Tay said, you don't care? I do care, brother, but to be honest, at a certain point, there's only so much you could do. What I want to do is try to change the mindset. I've been into communities, I've helped people, I could clean up, I've cleaned up trash, but at the end of the day, whether it's me or someone else, I could act like I care so much. To be honest, Tay, I could say I care so much, but at the end of the day, you got to care about yourself, you got to care about your family, you got to care about your people in your community, and then you can move on and help other people. And that's where you got to start, is by helping yourself. And at a certain point, when you live in a city that's just trashing it, you could clean up the trash. I've done that in the valley. I cleaned up the trash, and then 2 weeks later, they just trashed it again. So that's why I focus on mindset. I'm not going to march out here and act like I care about every single thing all the time and virtue signal. I do care about people. But Tay, even in the black community, like in the white community, statistically, outside of even murder and crime, I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of people dying because of opioid, drugs, and also unhealthy lifestyle. They don't have access to good food or good lifestyle. That's killing hundreds of thousands of people a year. And when it comes to murder, you look at the FBI statistics from 2016 to 2019, more white people kill white people than black people. It's not black people killing white people is not the big crime. White people kill each other. Black people kill each other by huge portions. It's just true. I don't like when a cop kills somebody. It's messed up. But if we can't even stop in our own race, our own community, if we can't stop our people from killing each other, how could we expect other people to do it? We can't do that. If we could clean up our own neighborhoods and our own, communities, then we could say, you're not doing what we're doing, but it's all hypocrisy. These same people in the streets, if they were cop, they'd be the corrupt cop. The same people who complain about the politician, they'd be the corrupt politician. We have to change ourselves. It sounds corny. We could talk about injustice. We could talk about doing something to shift black America and the black community and give them more resources. I'm all for a Nipsey Hussle style approach and really help people from the ground up. But this idea that we could stop 30 murders a year and ignore 10,000 murders, it just doesn't make sense to me. I'm sorry, I can't. And I know who's behind it. I know who's rolling it. Their agenda is not to help the black community or America. Their agenda is to take back power because they don't have control of this country anymore. And they've done it in Africa, and they've done it in the Middle East, and they've done it in Europe. When they don't control a country, they destabilize it. They use groups, foreign or domestic. They pump them with, whatever they want to pump them with, try to create chaos, add fuel to the fire, and then use that as a means to justification to take over. And when it comes to this election, you have to understand they shut down the economy. You best believe with all this stuff, the main point they're giving to everybody is they're telling them, go vote Democrat, you got to vote, and then they're going to keep all these people home. Most of these protesters would not be voting, but if you keep them home and send them mail-in ballots, now they're getting millions of more votes. They don't care at all. And, I'll just be honest. It's like, yeah, I care, but I'm not going to sit here and virtue signal and be like, I could go out in the street and say, oh my God, I care so much, take an Instagram picture and then go back to my life and do nothing. That's what a lot of people do. 365 days a year, they do nothing. They talk about nothing. They're not interested in deep conversations. And then they have the deep conversations twice a year, which is good. But then it's like they think they own the conversation, you know? I predicted in 2018 that they were going to Syria and Libya America. I had the blueprint already said. I said protests turn to riots. You know, once the protests turn to riots, they're going to do this, they're going to do this. Everything I said is happening. I knew this was going to happen before it even happened. But I appreciate the dialogue. I hear what you're saying. That's what it's going to take. And I'll tell you what, a lot of these people on the left or the right, the Democrats and the Republicans, and they don't care. You know, the left doesn't care at all. They'll lie, they'll cheat, they'll steal. The right wing, they'll do the same thing and then also try to play the game of like, they don't want to seem mean or something, you know, but it's going to take some tough conversations to really get to the core of it. The reason I don't do that is because I do care. Someone said, unfortunately, Nipsey was most likely killed for trying to be a good example. Could have been anything. I mean, when he died, it could have just been, you know, jealous people in the community, or you're right. Nipsey could have got killed as some sort of sneak attack. Nipsey was a street intellectual. You know what I'm saying? He was a gangster, but he was also very smart. He told people very wise stuff. Nipsey Hussle said, listen, the gangbangers from the 80s and 70s misled us because they told us to go do all this stuff. But once the 90s hit in the 2000s, your phone's tracking you. So if you commit crimes and you got cameras everywhere and your phone has a chip in it, you can't do that. That's the type of stuff Nipsey Hussle was on. So two options. Either somebody killed him or that happens in communities. And you'll find out when you get success like Nipsey did and like I did, it's your own people that are always the most threat to you. I've seen it in my own life. I'm not on Nipsey's level, but it's your own people in your own community. It's your own friends. It's people that you let in close or that you try to do the best for. Envy, jealousy, you know, that type of stuff is the first thing to get you. I've seen it happen in my own life. You know, where it's like people that I thought had my back are the first ones to use all the stuff that you did and then go for you. So it could have been that, or it could have been outside. I'm open to either one, but you know, that's why it's so tough. Like, I care. I can say I care. I want to clean up the streets. But if you want to be completely honest, over the last 2 years, my own personal life experiences, watching what's happened in the world, I just want to get away from everybody. Not like permanently, but it's like certain people you can't help. Like I'm looking at LA, Los Angeles, and their politics and policies, and then I'm looking at New York City. I love both cities. I know them very well. I just want to get away because I can't help these people. I can't help these politicians. They don't care. They're going to make excuses, destroy, 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 blame, blame, blame until you leave them and there's nobody to blame anymore. It's like an abusive relationship, you know? They blame you and then until you leave and they still... Someone said, do you think there's systemic bias in the criminal justice system? It's a good question, Cameron. So I want to talk about historically. I think historically, you could look at history. The country was a different place in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Obviously, you could see that Black Americans were not treated properly, and even you guys don't even realize it went to Irish people did not be treated properly. I'm part Puerto Rican, part Italian. My Italian relatives got called racist stuff all the time. Like they didn't treat anybody really, you know. They were very hateful towards people who were different for a lot of this country. All that's very real. You go into the 80s and 90s, and even like you talk about Black Wall Street, you look at situations in history where people were prospering and then they knocked it down. All that stuff's real. Same with MLK. You know, it was the FBI who wrote a suicide letter to Martin Luther King. They loved the guy so much, pushed a political agenda on his back, and then told him to kill himself. And then Malcolm X, like, you know, they didn't like him because he talked about liberals and, you know, the Jewish community too much, and they don't like that. So overall, all that stuff's real. Systemic, what I would consider racism and evil and systemic traps and manipulation, it's 1,000% real. Go into the 90s, things were handled wrong. But at this point, I will say, outside of that, absolutely. But then they infiltrated the rap community. And I'll say it's a lot of inner stuff going on now, too. So rap started out as b-boying, breakdancing, Grandmaster Caz. It was all positive. It was all inspirational. It was dancing, moving, exercise, white, black, mostly black, obviously. But, you know, it was like a serious vibe. And then NWA came out with F the Police, and it was a revolutionary song because it was the first one rebelling against the system, and it was real, and it was fair. But at that point, the record execs and the powers that be, they wanted to guide hip-hop in that direction. And now you look at hip-hop culture, pills, murder, It's worse than it was at the beginning. There's still your J. Cole's and, you know, your people, your Kendrick Lamar's and stuff. But overall, I think they've infiltrated the mental state of the community and the country as well to destabilize. So absolutely there's systemic stuff, but now we get to the point of how do we truly fix it? When it comes to, you know, police brutality, police murder, and police profiling and stuff, some of it exists. But also if you look at crime statistics, you know, the overwhelming majority for, you know, 12 or 6% of the population, depending how you want to break down, are responsible for like half of the murders. So there is a bigger problem in certain communities. We could talk about the history of it or how it happened, but to just act like it doesn't exist and say that that's not a problem at all, that's what Black Lives Matter does. That's why I don't really have anything to say to them besides the truth. You know, so there are different situations that happen in history, and it's the same with the white community, you know. They sent drugs to the black community, and now they sent drugs to the white community in the form of pharmacy pills. So you're seeing what's happening in the white community, opioid abuse. Everybody's addicted to pills, Xanax, this type of stuff. It's all happening, but when you understand that they don't care who they're doing it to, that's the movement, where it's like they did it to Africa, they did it to the Middle East, they did it to the black community, now they're doing it to the white community. Black Lives Matter is not the answer. They're not the solution. Those are the people who caused all these problems, trying to manipulate you for your next agenda. So I acknowledge the history, I acknowledge the present, I acknowledge the past, but however, this is a total political psyop in order to further destroy every community. So, you know, it's going to take real conversations to get to it, but they're out for, you know, this is not it. That's all I'm saying. All right. Someone said the music. No, the whole culture, entertainment. Guys, the whole movie system, you can watch. I'll tell you one. Go watch the music video after this. Search up Justin Timberlake Supplies by Justin Timberlake. Justin Timberlake's one of the, he's a funny guy, nice guy. He's one of the celebrities who's funding the protesters or the rioters to get out of jail. Go watch the video, Justin Timberlake Supplies. Guys, this stuff is not random. I'm sorry. You could watch that video. And it's not just rap culture either. It's all culture, it's all entertainment. These people are like social engineers. They're like, you know, they're working with like psychologists. They're not just putting out movies like, oh, watch, it's all agenda driven. Someone said right now everyone's under attack. No, for sure. But that's the leaders that tell you, who get close to home, they don't like that very much. If you repeat, and this is what Malcolm talked about, if you repeat the agenda of the liberals and the people at the top of the pyramid, you get endorsed. If you're black, you're going to get a television show. You're going to get a deal. If you rail against that, you're going to get hell. Lil Wayne, Candace Owens, Malcolm X. I'm not saying they're all exactly the same. Kanye West, they're all different, but they have one thing in common. They don't get good press for that stuff because they're railing against the top of the pyramid and saying, I see what you're doing. I see that you're manipulating. Yet you're going to give a black activist, you know, $1 million and, you know, a role in this organization if he follows the agenda. If he doesn't, excommunicated, blasted, called a name. It's messed up stuff, guys. Ray said you just dropped too much knowledge. No, it's cool. It's all love. It's all love. Someone said they are using a prison as a model to make society. I hear that. I mean, absolutely. The whole COVID shutdown and this, for sure, they're definitely pulling one over on all of society. Someone said, why are there not more rehabilitation places in California? Anita, great question. They don't care. I understand. I've heard that Ronald Reagan shut down a lot of those things in the 80s. Since then, they've been using him as an excuse. I don't agree with what he did. 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010, 2020. They still have not built rehabilitation centers. Guys, I've watched the city of Los Angeles get dirtier, more homeless, more corruption, more tents in the streets. These people don't care. And I see, to be honest, I walk around my neighborhoods and I see who's cleaning up, guys. To be honest, in many areas, it's either Scott Presler shows up or Scientologists. Say what you want about Scientologists, but they go at the pharmacy industry and actually clean up the streets and other random groups. I know there's this lady who works with a bunch of ex-criminals and cleans up all around Los Angeles. It's not the politicians. I'm sorry. It's not the liberal activists. They don't give a crap about our communities. They don't give a crap about anybody. They don't give a crap about the people who work there. Just to be honest, in Los Angeles, A lot of the areas are like mostly Hispanic. They don't care whatsoever. They march in the streets and block traffic twice a year and acts like they're helping. You're blocking families from getting to their kids. You're blocking people from work. You're blocking doctors and nurses from getting to the emergency room. You're not helping anybody. These people are such self-righteous liars. They don't care ever. They don't care about building rehabilitation centers. They're too weak to solve homelessness. How would you solve homelessness? I already have the blueprint. Build rehabilitation centers, build drug centers, have them all. Houses for people who need houses, drug centers for people who need drug help, mental health for people who need mental health. Build enough, we have the money. Once you have it, have a zero tolerance policy for the streets. You can't trash the streets. You can't do this. You either have to leave town or you have to, you're going to get arrested at a certain point for breaking the law if you're trashing the streets. However, we're not just going to go out and arrest people, send different types of people and get them into centers. They don't do that. They don't care. None of these people care. None of the politicians care. They just don't want you to destroy their neighborhood. And sometimes they don't even care. They're like, whatever. All right, we'll read a few more. And then what time is it? All right, I got like 20 more minutes. Someone said, I live in the harbor area of Los Angeles. We clean up because they won't. There's people who do clean up and help, but honestly, the loudest people really don't. Someone said, do you have any insight on Planned Parenthood in regards to systemic racism? I mean, that's not really my forte, but I've heard a lot. I haven't fully studied it, so I don't like to talk about things I haven't researched myself. But I've heard the history of Margaret Sanger, that she was a racist eugenicist who, was very anti-black. And that is, and even I think Bill Gates' father was involved in Planned Parenthood. A lot of these people are eugenicists. I don't know exactly what they're doing, but overall, I can't speak on it fully. But yeah, I've heard of that history. It's some weird stuff, but I don't know enough about it. Someone said, Rafi said, what's up, brother? Rafi said, I'm from Newark, New Jersey. The protest here is peaceful. The mayor came along. It was surprising. That's awesome. I think, yeah, I've heard that. That's really good to hear. I've heard a lot of places had successful protests. In the areas they don't, guys, you look at the leadership. Like, obviously, like Murphy in New Jersey is a little corrupt, but the people, most people are good people. I truly believe that. There's opportunists, there's losers, but most people are trying to do what's right. They're trying to help Black America. They don't know, a lot of them don't know what they're talking about. However, they are going. In a lot of these areas, there's other people with other agendas to take advantage of these people. So what happened to LA, what happened to New York City, what happened to Minneapolis, what happened to Seattle is bad leadership. And also, I guess probably the police in Newark probably had a good strategy. Like I watched on the news, Huntington Beach got rid of the protesters or the rioters, nothing happened. Santa Monica, they let riots and stuff happen. So I guess Newark handled it properly, which is great. I'm down. I just want to have a conversation with people. I like the peaceful end of it. I like the people who mean well. I just, I got to say my piece as well. Do I think Trump will enforce martial law? No, probably not. But damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. It looks like for the most part they got him under control, so I don't think he'll have to. Tony said, I just watched the video for Justin Timberlake Supplies. It's crazy. Yeah, watch that video, guys. It's not random. The Chrissy Teigens and the Seth Rogans, bailing out rioters. Someone said Bakersfield had some good protests. There's some good people out here, but it's going to take, not me personally, but it's going to take people like myself. And I don't operate, I can't speak for other people who almost agree with me. I'm myself, you know what I'm saying? I do my own thing, so I don't know, I can't justify everything everyone else is saying or doing all the time when, but I can speak. I would love to speak to Charlemagne the God. I would love to speak to Paul Rosenberg or Peter Rosenberg, whatever his name is, the guy from Hot 97. I'd love to have a talk with these people, guys. It's just, I don't know that they want to have a conversation with me. We'll find out. We'll figure it out eventually. But I'm trying to get to I would love to have that. And not even for myself. I don't need the attention. I don't really want it. I just want people in the tri-state area, people in the hip-hop community to hear something real. Like when, somebody real gets on those news platforms. There's some real intellectuals in the hip-hop world. I was listening to Sci-Hi the Prince, who's signed to Kanye West. Listen to Sci-Hi the Prince, one of his albums or one of his mixtapes. That's an intellectual guy. Nipsey Hussle, intellectual guy. Kendrick Lamar, very intellectual guy. J. Cole, you know, Kanye West. I mean, Lil Wayne, you know, his rap lyrics are not, but his craft, Lil Wayne's one of the best rappers ever. But mindset, he's on a whole different level, and people hate it. But what Lil Wayne is saying is like, he understands manifestation. He says, I don't see it, so I don't see it. You might think that's crazy, but and it's the same with what this African lady was saying in the video. I know she's American, but you could tell she has like a thick African accent. It's all manipulation. If they can convince you that something's happening, they're brainwashing you to manifest it. So they're actually, I know racism happens, but they pump it into so many people, they're actually times 10, times 20ing it. If you get to this mind state where you realize some of the tricks they're doing, you could fight injustices, but you do it outside of the sphere that they want you to live in. That's what Lil Wayne's saying. He's like, my energy brings certain people towards me. If I acted a different way, I wouldn't get these results. So he understands he's successful, and that's part of it. But it's also, if you think, it becomes. It's like mindset is so powerful. It's really make or break in this world, regardless of where you come from. So they try to infiltrate your mindset and make it messed up, and then tell you that they're helping you, you know? And Kanye gets that, Malcolm got that, Lil Wayne gets that, and it's outside of even like politics. They just know what the media is doing, and they're like, no, I'm not going to play with it. Someone said, I read the biography of Margaret Sanger. Yeah, it's crazy. Someone said, Wayne says he owes his life to a white cop when he was shot as a child. Yeah, I'm sure that really helped it. He got shot and he almost died, and he said all the black cops jumped over him, and the white cop saved his life. And he was like, from that point on, you know, he was like, wow. And then he never, you know, he's a gangbanger too. He just like, he treats everyone like he's fair. You know, he's just like, listen, it's good cops, good black people, bad black people, good white people, bad white people. That's how Lil Wayne sees it. And that's what they don't want you to see, because the second you take apart this stuff and don't understand that, all they do is manipulate. All they do is control, destabilize, take. Guys, they looted the entire country of trillions of dollars. So you got to YouTube the video, guys. Just YouTube the one I was talking about. So I said, what are your thoughts on the liberals' unrelenting assault on the Second Amendment? Yeah, I don't even like, you know, if you guys notice, I don't even talk about that much every little thing that they're doing, because it's nonstop inversion. They invert the reality. They tell you that people are coming for you, but then they tell you you can't own a certain gun. You know, gun control, the free speech stuff, the intolerance. It's all just hypocrisy. I don't know what you want me to tell you, but it's like they're never going to stop throwing fits and using their culture and celebrity figures to make people do their dirty work. So it's going to have to be people really, everybody's afraid, guys. I know so many people. When I say stuff, it's funny. Obviously, there's people who disagree of all ethnicities and stuff, and people who agree. But I get messages on Instagram. You know, I got dozens of black Americans hitting me up and being like, that's real. And then I got some scrawny white kid who, you know, I haven't talked to in 10 years, just all upset at me saying stuff where it's like, dude, you posted one thing and you think you're Malcolm X. Like, it's ridiculous. What do you think about Biden attending Floyd's funeral? I mean, it's nice to do, but it's a photo op, you know? Politics is a grimy thing, guys. You take a picture and everyone, like even with Trump and Biden, it's like, it's all just annoying to me. Like Trump holds up the Bible. It's a photo op. Why is Trump holding up the Bible in front of a church? Did Trump supporters like it? Of course, but it's a photo op to make him look like a good Christian. I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying it's a photo op. Why did Biden attend, you know, George Floyd's funeral? For a photo op to say he went there to try to get more black votes. It's a sick game these guys are playing, people. It's WWE on a world scale. It's gross. Someone said, you were afraid in the past, don't be afraid now. Hey, fear is not the answer. Who is that? Sonia? This is how they control people as well with mass media and on both sides is the fear. Never be fearful, and even anger. Anger is okay sometimes, I guess, but like honestly, if you're fighting with your spouse or you're fighting with your friend and you're angry, That's when you make mistakes. That's when you do too much. You know what I'm saying? And then you regret it like a couple hours later. So anger is a way to manipulate people because you're irrational. And then fear is a way to manipulate people because you're scared. So they love scaring people. You turn on CNN, MSNBC, even Fox News, fear, 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 fear. And then what's in the commercial, guys? Pharmacy pills, pharmacy pills. Who profited off of this shutdown? Pharmacy pills, Amazon. Who owns the Washington Post? Amazon. Who's one of the biggest sponsors of television? Pharmacy pills. This stuff is not random, guys. They tell you not to question pharmacy pills, and then the next commercial suing Johnson & Johnson or Zantac because there were some problems with it. This stuff is so obvious, you know, they don't care. Yeah, you know, people are dying in the inner cities with comorbidities because they're unhealthy, and then all their products are selling comorbidity stuff to people. It's like these people can care less. They're the biggest hypocrites, the biggest frauds from corporate media to politics. They're such con artists. It's insane. And the more people realize this, and the silent majority either stands their ground or speaks up, or in general, you know, gets on it. So yeah, the media is disgusting. And the fear, that's how they get you. And people think it's just with this type of stuff. If you follow CNN or MSNBC or even Fox News, I don't pay attention to any of them, but like my roommate used to watch CNN. And it was fear. North Korea is going to bomb you. North Korea is going to bomb you. ISIS is going to kill you. Like every day, helicopters flying. I'm like, dude, this is psychotic. This was in 2014 under Obama. The news networks are psychotic. They liked Obama, so they didn't talk about him. But it was ISIS in North Korea. When Trump got into office, he destroyed ISIS in Syria. And in North Korea, he got along with Kim Jong-un. So those are the two biggest fear-mongering crises they had. Kim Jong-un and North Korea pretty much quashed. They never stopped for a second and said, good, there's no celebration. Guys, they're fear networks. They are networks of fear, whether it's black, white, Hispanic, caravan, border, Trump, Obama, ISIS, North Korea. You know, they never stop fear, not for a second. Even if they scare you for 10 years and you solve the crisis that they did, there's no celebration. It's a fear network to sell you pills and war. Because those are the biggest contractors. Those are the biggest. Who pays Congress besides probably foreign countries at this point? Pharmacy companies, military-industrial complex. Who pays media? You know, who's their biggest sponsor? Who are the biggest donors of the Democratic Party? Who's the biggest donor of the Republican Party? What's his name? Did his wife get a Presidential Medal of Freedom? What's his agenda? You know, these are things that I've looked into. John said, "Shut up and take Xanax." No, why would you promote? You haven't. God bless you, John, but you got like a black power symbol in your thing, and you're telling me to shut up and take Xanax. What part of supporting the pharmacy industry is like counterculture? That's not counterculture, guys. The pharmacy industry controls both sides of politics and literally kills. You know, I'm sure they save people as well, but it's like. That's the counterculture now, is agreeing with CNN, MSNBC, you know, destabilizing the country and telling me to support the pharmacy industry. Guys, it's ridiculous. It's like people can't handle a different opinion. It's so much intolerance. It's nuts. And when people come here and disagree with me, I like it. I hope people still listen because I'm not lying. I'm not another one of these just Republican shills or liberal shills. I don't really care about any politic thing. I care about what's true and what's false. And if I notice patterns and trends on one side, I'm going to say it. Someone said, "You're doing the right thing." Thank you, Ayaki. I appreciate you, brother or sister. I can't see your profile pictures is put out. Someone said, "What's up with the Freemason stuff?" I got like 10 minutes. I got to roll. I mean, he had like a double-winged bird tattoo. The guy put his hand in his pocket. There's a lot of weird stuff around that situation, guys. I'm not saying it's not real. Police do messed up stuff. I'm not going to justify it. But, dude, I've watched them do this so many times in history. You can look up history. It came out in the JFK files that were released like 3 years ago. It's in a CBS article. Guys, they wanted to overthrow Fidel Castro, so they were planning to have a real or simulated. They were going to sink a boatload of Cubans. They said, we can either really sink a boatload of Cubans, kill Cuban people, or simulate it and pretend that we did it. It's in the files, guys. So they know how pissed off Black America and liberal America is. They know how pissed off you are. In many ways, your meaning is righteous. But this is how they control. These people are so sick, they'll consider sinking a boatload of Cubans to start a war with Fidel Castro. It's not my opinion. It was declassified 2 years ago in CBS. These people are sick. They'll use a picture of a Syrian boy to start a civil war. These people are sick. So if people think they wouldn't do something to George Floyd or this random cop, I mean, they're wrong. I'm not saying it happened. There is real brutality. There's real murder. There's already been multiple people murdered because of the response to the George Floyd protest. But I can't confirm it. I'm not trying to seem crazy, but it's like people just think because they're angry and, you know, they have a point that this could never happen. They've done it. I have the files. You know, it's in CBS. They're like, should we sink a boatload of Cubans or simulate it so we could start a war with Castro? What type of person thinks that way? These are not healthy people, guys. So it said, corporations push degenerate products on us as a way of population control and brainwashing. I mean, Amazon is crushing right now. Facebook is crushing. Thank you, Tina. I appreciate you. So it said, we are being played for fools. 100%, Mark. And I want to say this too, guys, because I know right now because of President Trump, a lot of Republicans and a lot of conservatives and a lot of Trump supporters are feeling like they're on the right side of history because they're going against the media. But you have to understand left to right, and this is why I take jabs at Fox and I take jabs at Trump sometimes. If you don't understand that they're going to throw you back and forth, then you're going to get played eventually. And I've seen the Republican Party do it 5 times. And when the Republican Party does it, no Republicans want to believe it because they point at the liberals and they say, well, the liberal media is bad. Yeah, but just because liberal media is bad doesn't make you right. Just because there's some bad Trump supporters doesn't make the left right. This is the game they play. So I've seen them pass anti-speech laws on the backs of things that... So you got to know, even if you're on the right side of history, on the left or right at a certain point, this is the game they play. They throw it back and forth all the time. George Bush, Barack Obama, use people that you like and you trust to do messed up stuff. You know, I hear from a lot of conservatives that Reagan was a really good leader. I'm sure he did some stuff, but a lot of conservatives are against amnesty. He gave amnesty. He hired Dr. Fauci. He passed the vaccine situation. He was the one that ended a lot of the mental institutions in California. So he wasn't all perfect too, but I'm sure when he was president, people who supported him didn't want to point that out. And that's how they get us, you know? They get us with these little games. It's not just black and white, left and right, Republican and Democrat. It's all just crazy, emotional. And that's why I say, even to a lot of people, if you're hateful, if you hate the left wing, when I talk about the left wing, sometimes they annoy me. Sometimes I don't agree with them most of the time. But I don't hate them. You got to love people. You got to pray for them. If they can capitalize on your fear and hate, they can control you. It doesn't matter how righteous you think you are, whether you're the most honorable black protester or you're the most honorable conservative, right-winger. They're going to control you with your fear and with your hate. And that's what people don't understand even on the right. It's like, well, they're bad, so I hate them. But then you're going to become them. You become what you hate. You become, I want to stop racism by being racism. I want to stop murder by more murder. I want to stop burning by burning. It's not going to stop it, And like what Lil Wayne says, it's like, listen, if we want to stop murder, I want to stop all murder, but how do you do that? If you can't stop people from killing each other, how are you going to stop the police from doing it? It's not possible. If we could stop all civilians from killing each other, then there's going to be no police. And also when it comes to why police get away with bad stuff, guys, we have to look into unions. I think unions are good for pay, but they protect bad people. And now you combine it with affirmative action and race and lesbian, LGBT, feminism stuff. Guys, everybody's so self-righteous. So if you're a cop and you do 20 bad things, the union will probably protect you. If you're a bad employee and you get fired, you could blame racism or sexism or something. If you're a woman, it's like this whole safe space political correct culture is just degenerating our society on both sides. And it is the reason probably that cop wasn't fired. It's not easy to fire a cop. It's not easy to fire a teacher. It's not easy to fire a postal worker. It's not easy to fire anybody at everything. You're going to get sued by either the union or the person. So the reason that guy was even there is because they knew he was a bad guy, but they probably just didn't want to get rid of him. You know, that's, all right. I got 10 minutes and I got to roll. Victor said, how did someone so young, such as yourself, get so full of knowledge and random facts? I commend you. Well, Victor, I started rapping in the year 2006 or 2007. I was rapping about crazy stuff and theories and, you know, deep diving stuff a lot of times. I was rapping about it. I didn't know that much, but once 2016 hit, I really started paying attention. And this is when I really figured it out. It wasn't even on the Trump side. It was on the Bernie Sanders side. I saw that Hillary Clinton was the chosen child of the media, and they didn't like Trump or Bernie Sanders. And I saw how the media operated, and I had free time because I worked on social media. So I studied every day how the news worked, how Google worked, how Washington Post worked, how New York Times worked, how Breitbart worked, how Fox News worked. And I noticed something crazy. I noticed, as somebody who supported Bernie Sanders, that it was actually Breitbart, a far-right news organization, that gave fair press to Bernie Sanders. Breitbart News was giving better press to Bernie Sanders than MSNBC and CNN, who were supposed to be liberal. And then I was like, what the heck's going on? So I studied, I started talking about it, and I somehow made it into a career by mistake doing this. So now I've had 3 years or 2 years to full-time do this stuff. So if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do my job properly, you know? And I have the blessing to be able to research a lot because that's what I do. So over 2 years of not doing anything else and researching, you learn a lot of stuff, you know? And you just got to remember, too, anything you read, you know, is it biased? Is it true? Is it not? Who wrote it? You got to be humble about it because, you know, they trick people who are like pseudo-intellectuals into, I have a PhD and I'm so smart. Sometimes it's the street intellectual, you know, who is smarter than the PhD person. I'm going to read this. Cassidia, I'm going to read that. Hold on. Cassidia said, I'm a black protester, not a rioter, and I'm not afraid nor hate, but it should be easy to prosecute police murders. They are proven personal policies, which are quite easy to reprimand and fire. Cassidia, I agree with you 1,000%. And this is what the media does as well. They try to say, here it's us versus them, but if you talk like that, Cassidia, you sound smart and reasonable. 98% of people agree with you. I would say probably 95% of people who support the president or are right-wing, they agree with that. I had somebody right-wing recently comment on my video and tell me, Anomaly, I'm a police officer. It's the unions who make it easy for racist cops and bad cops to stay there because you can't fire somebody. It's very hard with unions or protection or, you know, all these stuff in place. So you're 1,000% right, but there's the big picture here, and I hope you bring this to the protest and try to get through to some people, is it's not just the police force that they protect and it's anybody with power. A politician can rape a 2-year-old kid and they won't see a single day in jail. They can do the most disgusting, sick stuff. They could loot the country for trillions of dollars, start a war, start slavery in Africa, kill people in the Middle East, start chaos here, and they never get a day in jail. So that's a big problem outside of even race and police. A huge problem is just power. Anybody with money and power and control in this world doesn't get held accountable. So if you're a police officer, not only do you have you have the part that you are the law. So who holds the law accountable when you are the law? And then also you bring in unions and you bring in protections for the police. It's very hard to get rid of a bad cop, I'm sure. And it's getting even harder on a personal level to get rid of a bad employee at other companies too, because there's so many protections where at a certain point we're going to need a leader in this country to say, you know, what's right is right, what's wrong is wrong. And we're not going to, you know, we're not going to sugarcoat anybody, but at the end of the day, it's like whether it's a cop or a politician, if you mess up, you got to go. But they've confused America so much too. There's in Japan and other countries, or I think it was South Korea, politicians did 1/20th of what American politicians do. They got arrested and thrown in jail. This is the only country where you could do anything. Not the only one, but there's other crazy countries too. But there's a problem because we're so divided. So I appreciate the comment. And don't listen to the media when they tell you that there is no half the country thinks George Floyd's death was justified, half the country doesn't. 99% of the country, if not more, thinks George Floyd was murdered. I have not met a single conservative person that I talk to in real life that think he deserves to be murdered. If anything, I've heard that people think it might have been, you know, a total setup of some reason. But I don't know anybody who thinks what the cop did was right. Everybody knows that's wrong. But the media will pretend like we agree, and everyone agrees. Like literally, it's pretty settled. And then same with the protesters. Most protesters aren't violent and aren't looters and aren't rioters. However, I would say to whoever's a protester, understand that blocking traffic is not really the most peaceful thing to do, because if you're in Los Angeles or New York and you guys block 4 streets, you're stopping white, black, Hispanic, doctors, nurses, every race, families from getting to their house, to getting to their food. And when you march through the streets, now all the stores are closed after a 3 or 4 month economic shutdown. So it's like we're already struggling on a scale. Like we're facing a Great Depression, unlike anything we've seen before from the COVID shutdown. And now we got people blocking neighborhoods and blocking communities, and you know. So that's what I would say be conscious of, because that's all happening as well. Someone said the Netherlands is the same. Politicians can do what they want. And these are the people pulling the strings. Because once you realize, you're like, all right, the bad cop gets protected, the bad teacher gets protected, but no one gets more protected than the bad politician. Guys, the stuff they're doing would make the looters look like Mother Teresa or Martin Luther King. You know, these are some sick people at high-level positions. And they are just so out of control. That's why I keep it real. A lot of people on the right, and in general, you know, they'll say, well, these people need self-accountability. No one needs self-accountability more than the people at the top. They have none. And that's the psychology. Is like when you don't get held accountable. If I do something wrong, they're going to throw me in jail. If you do something wrong, you step out of line at the protest, they're going to arrest you. If they do something wrong, that's 1,000 times worse than anything anybody in the hood does, or anything anybody in, you know, redneck America does. Not saying redneck is a bad word. I think white people aren't that snowflakey, but you get what I'm saying. Anybody, you're going to jail. They could do 100 times what you do, and nothing happens to them. It's a major, major problem in this country. And to be honest, I think the reason the media hates Trump so much is, out of anybody, he's the only person I've ever seen try to hold people accountable. He's calling out the FBI and the CIA. He fired an FBI director. Even Farrakhan agrees with that. He's calling out the media. They don't hate Trump because he's a horrible person. They hate him because he's the first politician to even attempt to hold any of these people accountable. I mean, Dianne Feinstein from, California was working with Chinese spies for 10 years and nothing happened to her. She's got like $100 million off of a $100,000 salary. Where's she getting her money from? Someone said we have to make a change that starts in voting good people. We not only have to vote in good people, but we have to be good people. You get what I'm saying? If you replace the shitty politicians with shitty people, it's a cycle that never ends. If you replace the shitty police with shitty people who become shitty police, it's never going to end. If we can't stop the violence and hate in our own communities, how can we expect the police or the politicians to do it? So yes, we got to vote in good people, but overall, we have to be better people. You know, we have to raise our kids right. I don't even have kids, but you get what I'm saying? We have to like call each other out, where it's like, if we can't be good people, I've watched my city turn into a place that it looks good on Instagram, it looks good on, Google Images, but when you walk the streets, you're like, it's a community, and this isn't even, people talk about the inner cities all the time. This is mostly, some Hispanic neighborhoods, a lot of white, prominent neighborhoods where, people come in and pay $4,000 for like luxury apartments. Their neighborhood's trashed. Why is their neighborhood trashed? Because people don't care about that. They just like to talk about it. I connect with the people who actually work and, work at these stores and stuff. And they're like, it keeps getting worse. It's getting worse. It's getting worse. And no one cares because they have no strength. But if you love your family, you're not pandering to the outside world. You're going to protect your family. You're going to make sure that nobody comes in or does anything wrong. If you love your city, your town, you're not going to pander to the outside forces. You're going to hold it down for your people. The problem with modern day culture is all these people are talking about environmentalism, but their environment sucks. How are you going to change the world's environment when you got the dirtiest air in the country and the most polluted oceans in the country? Los Angeles, San Francisco, polluted air, polluted water. Google it. I mean, they have homeless people just crapping in the streets. When it rains, it all drains out into the ocean, is killing mammal sea life. So how are you going to change the world's environment when you can't even change your own environment? How are you going to clean the world and clean the air when you can't even clean your streets? How are you going to talk shit to Idaho when your area is way more disgusting than Idaho? So it's like, these people have some nerve. They've got us worried about everyone else except for ourselves. And I've watched it happen in liberal America. Austin, Texas. San Francisco used to be beautiful because liberals are great. They make oat milk lattes and they come to your neighborhood and raise rent $2,000. Yeah, real nice. But anyway, you know, they come through, raise the rent, bring oat milk lattes, and it works for 10 years. And then their neighborhood goes to crap because they have no strength. They have no honesty. You know, whether you're in Compton, West Hollywood, or, you know, what's it called? San Francisco, do you care or do you not care? If you care, you're going to say what's true. If you say what's true, people who are honest are going to like it. People who aren't honest are going to get pissed off. Doesn't matter if your neighborhood's black, white, or Hispanic. That's just the way the world works. In Africa, South America, or America. You say the truth, honest people are going to like it. People that aren't honest are going to hate it. Who cares? It's going to be probably close to 50-50 split. And then in general, you got to do what's right. But these people don't want to do what's right. In San Francisco, it's going to take some hard work. You can't just sit back and say, yeah, things are systemic, but also now the system is you. You're part of the system, and you're systemically screwing this community over. So I could talk about systemics of 80s and 70s and 60s and 90s and 2000s, but now we are the system. We're building the new system. What type of system are we building? Being nicer, it's better that everybody's nice to all ethnicities. That's awesome. I'm glad we have that. But there's too much weakness. So it's like the new system is now degenerating the cities, and they don't want to talk about it. They don't live in the present moment, and they're becoming, you know, everything they hated in history. Someone said most people get pissed to the truth. It depends how you say it. Yeah, people do. But overall, if you say it in a kind way, and this is why it's important. You see with my video, I really got to go in a second. You see with my video, there's people at the protests who are standing up for Black lives who can communicate with me. Why? Probably they're good people, but also I'm not hateful with it. I'm not mean. A lot of people on the right wing are hateful. They're mean. You know, and it's not a good strategy. You might be right in your opinion, but your approach is wrong and you're scaring everyone away, and then you eventually become what you hate. You can't be hateful. You have to pray for people. You have to show them love. You could be annoyed at them and let them be, but you can't. It can't be based off anger and hate, because then it just riles up both sides and it becomes nothing. So you can get through to not everybody, but some people, you know, in general, if you just keep it real, but just because you're real, you don't have to be angry. You don't have to be hateful. And there are different things. Like, I think everybody's so caught in their mind frame. There are messed up stuff that happened to Black America. I mean, you hear stories from people who had to deal with like crazy times. Everyone has their own story. Everyone has their own life path, and messed up things happen in this country. I know for sure, you know, the 1900s were a different time, different era, different struggles. And then it got to a point and we changed certain things. But at this moment in time, you know, we just have to attack it honestly. And that's what's really gonna help. I appreciate you guys. I'm gonna leave this up probably for, I don't know, 24 hours maybe or so. And then I'm gonna move it to bitshoot.com/dreamrare and my YouTube channel. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for sharing and supporting. To the supporters on my page, I apologize. Crazy times if you haven't noticed. I'll get to doing some more private live streams and stuff for the supporters on Facebook. It's just been so nuts. I'd rather at this time talk to everybody, you know, rather than just a few people. I feel like it's a better use of time, but we'll get to it. I'll probably make more videos and stuff soon. And overall, you know, God bless everybody. Stay safe and stay smart. And that's all you can really ask. Have a good one.